order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Bruce, roll call, please.
Councilmember Barrett. Here. Mayor Pro Tem Visible. Here. Councilmember Ellis.
Here.
Councilmember Gazelle.
Here.
Councilmember Kaczynski.
Here.
Councilmember Cusick. Here. Councilmember Seaver.
Present.
On page 3 are the minutes of the November 20th regular meeting.
Mr. Mayor, can I address that momentarily? I added an amendment there. I thought that I had gone brain dead during the 3.5-hour meeting and omitted that portion of the minutes, but I did not. I found the minutes and I've amended them. I went brain dead when I was typing the minutes, so I omitted those portions. So I've now reinserted them in there.
Well, that's shame on us for having a 3.5-hour meeting, but, okay, I need a motion to approve what, the amendments that were added.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
On pages 9 to 16 are various committees and commission minutes. Again, I need a motion to accept in the public domain.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Public comment? Any public comment? The next item is reappointments to the boards, committees, and commissions. We have reappointments for 2019. Helen By, Beautification Chair, a 2-year term. Rob Squires, the Improvement Foundation Representative, a 2-year term. Vicki Boyce is a Tree Board board member, 2-year term. And then we have the Board of Review. We're adding Kim Schmidt for a 2-year term, replacing Vince Locicero, who is stepping down for health reasons. And I want to thank Vince for many, many, many years of service and leadership. Need a motion to approve these reappointments.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Rhonda? Moving right along here.
Good afternoon, everyone. In your packet, you have a listing of the wire transfers for the month of December. There's really nothing unusual about this, except other than we're making the tax distribution now that we're collecting the winter taxes. If you have any questions?
Any questions? Okay, no
Right.
questions?
And we'll move on to the check register. The list of checks that were issued since the last council meeting. A lot of checks, number of them are payments to employees based on their contracts, whether it was a boot allowance for the Public Works Department or cleaning allowance for the public safety officers. Other than that, there's a number of checks for engineering firms for work on the SAW grant or Bellmead or Colonial Road at the park also. Is there any questions that you may have regarding any of the checks that were issued?
Anybody have any questions?
When you're giving these officers their cleaning, is this money that they didn't use during the year?
No, this is based on their union contracts, the amount that was agreed upon to pay for their uniform cleaning for the year.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I do have a question. So for the uniform cleaning, if they don't use it, they just get a payment? Is that how it works or what?
They just get a annual payment, period.
Okay.
It's not,
It's an allowance.
it's just an allowance.
Cash it, and then they do what they want.
Got it. All
They
right,
want
thank you.
They want to dry clean at home or whatever they do.
Yep.
Does that go on their W-2 then?
It's not, does not, no.
It does not.
But it's, they pay tax on it,
Well, if they were to go over the $600 a year, which they don't.
so you don't issue it to
But you
99
can't be
for
a
it.
contract employee and a salary employee at the same time, so Bruce is right. It should be added to their W-2s.
That really should be part of the W-2.
Okay.
Then you gotta pay pension on it.
Well, it's something maybe we can talk about in the Finance Committee, but it is an issue. It would be, taxable income, as Bruce knows, and everyone here knows, is very broadly defined. So, any other questions with the
You know,
check register?
Unless they were able to produce receipts, then they don't have an issue.
Right.
It's not deductible anymore.
Really?
With the new tax act.
Yeah, starting this year, unreimbursed business
All the miscellaneous
expenses.
deductions are gone.
This year.
Cleaning, professional dues, events, all
Yeah.
the
Okay.
publications, all that good stuff,
Okay.
Okay. Are there any questions? If not, I need a motion to approve this check register run.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Okay, and then I've inserted a sheet regarding our payroll disbursements since the last council meeting. At our finance meeting, I presented a couple different reports that I could prepare. But basically, it's either not giving enough information or maybe not the right information that someone might be looking for. So on this sheet, I'm just showing each pay period, what the pay period was for, how many people were paid during that, the gross amount, and then a breakdown of the different taxes and deductions that can then be tracked back to the check register also.
Okay. Rhonda, where is the booking for the sale of the lot? Is that in account number 197 or 697 for income?
Yes.
Okay. Because I see we previously had a budget for 16,000, so that must have been something different. Okay. Any questions about the financial statements? Okay, thanks, Rhonda. Bruce, committee report?
Finance Committee met last week, went over the preliminary budget for the upcoming fiscal year. Capital equipment and needs and wants of the various departments was pretty much agreed to. We're running some scenarios, pricing models for revising the water billing to break out some more detail there, and then to give some options to the council about how they want to go forward in terms of minimum billing versus higher charges for usage. And also, we talked significantly about the retiree healthcare reporting and financial shortfall that we're facing. Next meeting will be in February, and the next one after that will be April, when we really have the budget. So we have.
The February meeting's in Naples, isn't it, or?
I'm sorry, that we have a meeting in February, and then not till April.
Okay.
No, there is no meeting in Naples.
At this time, I want to talk a little bit about the retiree health care plan that we are trying to fund, and possibly, it was brought up by the head of the finance committee that we may need to raise taxes actually forever, to fund that. And it is my understanding that some people do not want to revisit that contract for the retiree health care plan. And I would like someone to direct where we can revisit that contract and possibly make some amendments to the retiree health care plan, as far as possibly some contributions from the retirees.
Well, it's certainly our biggest legacy item. We have a mature but closed defined benefit pension plan. And our contributions, I think, are more than $105,000 per month, just in distributions now to the active retirees. The GASB, the new Government Accounting Standards Board for retiree health care, I know my concern, I'm more worried about retiree health care. Using not even the most conservative of estimates, our liability for the plan is somewhere around $10.9 million, and we have $1.7 million of plan assets right now in the bank. So that leaves a shortfall. If we follow the new Public Act funding requirements, we're required to fund $703,000 for an annual budget. Remember, our general fund is somewhere around $7 million. So 10% would have to go to retiree health care, according to the new government accounting standards. That's what's leaving a shortfall right now. I don't know what the answer is. I mean, but the bottom line is that, we have a tough year ahead. I've asked the Finance Committee, I've talked to Mark about sharpening our pencil and looking at expenditures that maybe could be foregone. We were asked to contribute monies to the fireworks this year, and we don't have the money to do it. Whatever the contribution. Rocket Fiber came up, and again, we've tabled it because of the money issue. We're looking at other ways to become more efficient in either, curtailing paid summer interns. The smallest of items right now we're looking at to see how we can balance our books. Our fund balance right now is fine, but the future is uncertain because of these legacy costs. There's there's not a normal progression dollar for dollar. By far, our biggest variance right now is our pension plan funding and our retiree health care. So if we didn't have those two items, it's a much easier city to run, because the variable costs, you don't know what they are. I mean, thanks to the leadership of the Finance Committee, I see Chuck in the back there, I want to acknowledge him. I mean, this is the toughest task for all the cities. Most of the other gross points have essentially had to seek a reporting waiver under the new Public Act 2017. They've had to go to the state and basically ask them what to do. The farm submitted a plan in response, and they were turned down. I don't know what they're going to resubmit right now. The mayors and managers met a couple weeks ago, and this is foremost on everyone's mind. How do we deal with this item? It's not going away, like Tina, like you said, but I don't know what the solution is. The legislature certainly didn't give us any solutions. We just, at the pension meeting, Chuck, you remember, the motion was made, we approved an actuarial expense of $31,000 or $32,000, I believe. Previously, our budgeted amount for actuaries was somewhere in the $7,000 to $8,000 range. So it's more than 4 times more. And on top of that, that's going to continue because these reports are required under state law. Rhonda's already submitted our report card to the state to show that we're in compliance with the new Public Act. But where do we go from here? I mean, no one knows. It puts more pressure on the general fund. And again, we're looking at some of the smaller items now that are probably attracting our attention because they are all adding up. So, but again, Tina, I don't know. I'm like I said, all the other mayors and managers are concerned about this issue. Again, we just met, and that came up. What are you doing for retiree health care? What are you resubmitting to the state of Michigan to show that you have a plan, a workable, actionable plan? And you know, we're all just shaking our heads because we don't have the answers. So.
Well, that begs the question, are we going to review and explore retiree participation? And who does that? And where do you start to do that?
Well, I don't think we have any options, Bruce, with the pension plan's closed right now. And because of it, it causes turmoil because there are still a few other cities that are offering some kind of minimum defined contribution benefit, not just a defined contribution. There are some other cities, and I believe the Park is one of them, that has a very small defined benefit component. But I don't know. You know, we have right now an 80-20 plan for medical expenses for active employees. So we're one of the few gross points to do it. It was tough to do, but when the law became available in 2011, in December of 2011, this council acted proactively and we adopted an 80-20 plan so that we pay 80% and the employees pay 20%. And again, that maybe leads some bad feelings to the employees because if they're in the retiree health care plan, they pay nothing. And so there would be an incentive to move from the active employee plan, which right now they contribute 20%. And that first year, I think we saved $93,000 by doing it that way. That was a big item to curb the shortfall in our budget that year. But I don't know. I don't think anybody has the answers, and I don't know. You know, there's legal issues too that are involved, and unfortunately, Brian's not here to maybe offer some kind of opinion. But I don't know, Tina. I don't know. I mean, and I know that all the cities are worried about it, and all the Grosse Pointe mayors, the Harper Woods mayor. This is an overwhelming issue for most cities. I think Grosse Pointe Woods right now, the required minimum contribution for them on an annual basis is somewhere around $6 million a year. $6 million for retiree health care, when I looked at the report card from the state under that Public Act 2017. So, you know, if you're taking that money away, then you're not providing services. And so if you want to be a world-class city providing world-class services, what do you do? What do you do? It's a conundrum. And again, nobody, I mean, unfortunately, there was no help at the legislature this year. And now with the change in the political powers in Lansing, there's likely to be no change in the future. So, I don't know. I don't know, Bruce, you have any thoughts on it? I know
Well,
you've
number
been
one,
working.
contractually, they're bound. We signed a contract, it's under the labor agreement. And the contract's got 2 more years to run. It's part of that agreement with the employees. So I would tell you that from a contractual basis, we have no alternatives in the short term. Number 2, I would tell you that notwithstanding the financial, there is somewhat of a moral obligation that we made a commitment to these people, provide this retiree health care on an ongoing basis. And we are now trying to if you will, renegotiate that with people who don't have a vested interest in the community at this point, who worked here under the reliance that they were gonna have that as part of their benefit package. So that's the second issue. Third issue, we made the reporting requirement, we're good for 3 years, right? Basically, because our OPEB report doesn't have to be done for 3 years. It is a significant issue, however, the state wants you to have 40% funding. We're at about 12 or 14% right now, I think.
I think 16.
16%. So our shortfall is not as dramatic as other communities. Bear in mind, number 3, that our pension contribution this year was about $60,000 to $80,000 less than we budgeted. The Finance Committee is going to allocate that money from pension, which is 98% funded, to retiree health care. We took 50% of the year-end surplus for the fund balance and put that into retiree health care. We did that as well. So every dollar that we're doing, we're putting it towards that. We don't need to increase our fund balance any further going forward, but we need to maintain our capital equipment funds and our other accounts. It's a tough issue, but I would tell you that compared to the other communities, we've got at least to start in terms of doing that. And it is an ending thing, if you will, simply because the plan is closed. Current employees do not participate in terms of getting retiree health care. It's a legacy we live with. I'm sorry, that's a reality that we have. Remember, there was a Blue Ribbon Committee 7 years ago, I think it was, about right? 7 or 8 years ago, that went through this specific issue on retiree health care. And basically their conclusion was, close the plan, get ready to spend some money. I think that's basically what they said. We've done those things. We're looking at changing some of the prescription drug copays in terms of third-party administrators and things like that. The really expensive part of this thing, is prescription costs. The healthcare part is not really the big challenge. The really expensive is you get somebody who's retired, who's ill, who unfortunately needs a cancer drug, and that's $500,000. That's where the numbers really go crazy.
Is there COLA built into that every year?
For
Healthcare.
it's just they get the healthcare regardless of cost. So there's no COLA calculation, if you will.
Well, the actuary bases on inflation with healthcare costs.
Yeah,
They're
but-
looking out, they have to amortize this over the life
The
expectancy.
the other thing to point out is that this law went into effect this year, but every municipality, for the vast majority of municipalities in Michigan, have gone along with what's called a PAYGO system, pay as you go. And that is still a perfectly acceptable practice to do. Okay. They said, the legislature suddenly decides to pass this law. They really, if you look at Grosse Pointe Farms' proposed report to address their deficiency, they're a AAA rated community, 100% funding in their pension plan. They're saying that the earliest they're gonna get fully funded is 2022, 2026. If they are struggling to make those financial commitments, there's 85 to 90% of the communities in this state have no chance in anywhere of getting close to funding. So this is not a unique problem to our community or anything like that. We're way ahead of that. We're working towards that. But Tina's right, and she's, her concern, and she voices that finance was, a revenue source dedicated to retiree health care. We've not raised our general tax rate in this community in 8 years. Any tax increase was earmarked for projects. We have survived and run this community on a $1.2 million less budget than we had 8 years ago. And I would dare defy anybody to say that our services are less than they were 8 years ago. We have a window of opportunity going forward to look at funding this before it really catches up to us. So that's what we're working on this, and we haven't come to any conclusions yet. I know Mark can certainly ask the labor attorney, inquire on a general basis, what is, reopener or something about the healthcare costs. It's worth talking about, but I wouldn't run financial projections based on that.
You had talked about looking at prescription medication costs as one of the possibilities. What about deductibles?
Well, the plan, the language is pretty specific in the contract that they get health care equal to or better than what they currently had when they retired. They didn't have deductibles. Most of the retirees are in Medicare Advantage, so that there's really no out-of-pocket for that. The expensive is we're self-insured on drugs up to a stop-loss limit. Then the stop-loss kicks in. And the money in drugs is made by the third-party administrators, Novartis and that's why Aetna bought and CVS bought Aetna and those guys. That's where the money is really. The drug manufacturer doesn't make the big money. It's the third-party administrator, and they get big rebates for these plans. And that's what we're looking at. Ron presented some ideas from our consultant who handles the Blue Cross for all of the Grosse Points. I don't know if you know that all the Grosse Points combine their Blue Cross purchasing. And we've looked at that as well. So it's a work in progress, I can tell you, but it's something that's going to be our biggest challenge going forward is funding the retiree health care.
So with the supplemental Medicare, does that contract get renewed annually? The supplement to their Medicare,
Well, it's a Medicare Advantage. It's an HMO plan instead of
right?
their, Part A. You don't have Part A and Part B. You have Part C.
Right.
And that's your Medicare Advantage plan. And those plans, they renew each year. But those premiums are only $7,000 or $8,000 a year for the plan.
But most of those cover prescriptions, right?
That's Part D.
Okay,
Part D is separate and distinct.
got it.
And those Part D plans are basically worthless. You pay a lot for nothing. So that's where we sit with this. So
Well, let's hope everybody stays healthy, right?
Well, that's a good summary, and the good thing is people are living longer. The bad thing is people that are living longer need more health care. So when the plan was approved, I think our attorney looked at this, when these provisions were approved, people didn't live as long. And so the proviso was that you'd be carried for life. We have retirees over 100 years of age right now. Their dependents that are currently receiving retirement benefits. So, but Bruce, you described it perfectly. I mean, right now it's the biggest challenge facing every city. And so for the legislature to really drop the ball and add more cost, instead of spending $7,500 this year, we spent $32,700, I believe. And then every year we're going to have to do that. And then every 7 year, we cannot trust our own actuary. We got to bring a new actuary to check the work of the prior actuary. That's what they made us do every 7 years. So we got to have a peer review of our own actuarial service. It's crazy. It's crazy. And if I was in Lansing, I'd say the same thing, maybe more forcefully. There was absolutely no relief, no guidance to the cities. So
it's not going to change. You have a Republican legislature and a Democratic governor-elect. The Republican legislature is bulletproof. You'll never see a Democratic. The way the districts are drawn, you'll never see a supermajority Democratic state. You may have a Democratic governor, but the House and Senate are going to stay Republican. So they're going to be at loggerheads going forward in terms of the changes in this bill. Okay, nothing's going to come through this lame duck session to make any changes. So what's on the books is going to stay on the books going forward. So it's going to be a real challenge, because I think this reporting requirement that they've instituted, I believe, is going to collapse around them. I think they're gonna be faced with overwhelming non-compliance by so many jurisdictions and so many communities. Flint, Saginaw, Bay City, Benton Harbor, Detroit. Places, I mean, big cities that are gonna have major shortfalls. And they're gonna start imposing those kind of funding requirements. You're gonna impose that on the city of Detroit that just is getting through bankruptcy right now, who's got major pension payments due in the next 18 months. Okay, let's see if some executive orders don't come out of Lansing, you know, making some changes in this thing, because it's just not workable for the communities in the whole state.
Well, I agree, and I think that's, the challenge is for the legislature or the governor to address it. So, well, with that background, Chief, Public Safety?
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. As I reported last week, unknown groups nationwide attempted to threaten and extort money from various businesses throughout the United States. Board House was caught in that particular. Their security director received an email requesting $20,000. We treated it, knowing that it was most likely false, we treated it as legitimate, and we were able to obtain an explosive detection canine from the state police. And we did a sweep of the building. There were 51 employees and guests in the building at the time, so we needed to take it very seriously. Just an update, we're currently processing 2 public safety candidates for employment. We hope to have them completed with some of their testing in the new year, early in the new year. After the first of the year, we'll be assembling the data for our 2018 annual report. We are proud to report another excellent year of service, training, and historically low crime rate. The report we hope to present at the March 19th council meeting. And just finally, I just wanted to thank the mayor and council for the past year for the support for public safety. We appreciate the good equipment, the good training, and I want the officers that patrol this community to be the best trained and to be responsive to all of the needs of the community. And we're very grateful for the commitment that you've made to public safety. Just one note, I went to a meeting, I missed the finance meeting last week, but I went to a meeting in Wayne County, and I spoke with the sergeant in charge of the Wayne County Marine unit. And I expressed to him some of the complaints that we had received over the years in regards to the excessive noise, you know, with the boats, et cetera. He has, through the grant process, it's actually, the county is the fiduciary, but it's a federal plan, Operation Stone Garden, where the government will pay to have employees work this particular detail. We will be able to put an officer on the Wayne County boat, which is housed in Grosse Pointe Farms, to address some of these complaints. So I'll stay in communication with him over the year. And as spring approaches, we hope that we can address the complaints that we have on, most specifically, the north end. So,
Would our guy drive the boat then?
pardon me?
I mean, so would there be a Wayne County sheriff?
There's a Wayne County sheriff will be assigned to the boat, and we'll assign one of our officers to work with him, so we can go out and enforce those complaints.
Right.
Sir.
Any other questions of the chief?
So December the 6th, you get this,
Yeah.
marijuana is legal. So if you have a traffic stop, how do you, at this point, because it's a 0 tolerance for THC at this point in your system, right?
We're still waiting from some directives from the legislature and, you know, these nanogram thresholds. It's all brand new, so it's, and I've been consulting with Brian Renault in regards to some of the changes for us. It's my understanding we will not, obviously we don't have a commercial district here in Grosse Pointe Shores, but we cannot prevent the, even though there was an attempt at legislative effort to try and stop the growing. You can't stop them from growing, but we can, obviously, since we don't have a commercial district, we can stop them from selling, of course.
So if you pull somebody over, do you have a field test for?
Not yet.
That's what
It's being developed.
it's not available for any department, is it? The only way you can test is blood work?
It's not standardized yet, and it's not available yet,
They're
so.
working on a swab, Bruce. It's like a Q-tip.
Right, but
They
it,
do the inside of your mouth, and they put it on a strip, and if it changes color, there's THC
why would
present.
you know that? That's where you.
Scientific American.
That,
I was literally having a conversation last spring with Speaker of the House, Tom Leonard, about this, because I had asked that the legislature make it legal to bump it off of the ballot, because number one, it would totally change the voter turnout at the ballot box, and number two, as long as the legislature makes it legal, they can regulate it. But if it's a proposal, a ballot proposal, the legislature is bypassed, and they have no ability to amend or regulate that proposal. So I really felt like the legislature dropped the ball by just letting this thing roll forward. And at that time, that's when I had been told about the roadside sobriety test.
Those laboratories are working on those. They haven't been adopted by the state yet as well. Just remember that we process impaired drivers with alcohol and with drugs, with narcotics. So the OUID charge is a separate charge, and we can still make an arrest based on your ability to drive, your ability to perform field sobriety tests. We just don't have the preliminary breath test that you would have. For example, if we stop a driver and his ability to operate a vehicle is significantly impaired, we give him a preliminary breath test, and he blows 000. We know that there's there's a drug involved. We then make the arrest, take blood, and determine what's in the system. As far as the THC content, we're still waiting for that.
So you can still get Cheech and Chong when you pull them over, right?
Yeah, it's still a good arrest. All the PBT does, the preliminary breath test for alcohol, is it's like frosting on the cake. We establish our probable cause prior to
Because of their driving
the
content.
PBT, based on their driving ability, motor skills, et cetera. So.
Rich, did you have a question?
I've got a question for the chief of police. Would the public safety officer and Marine Patrol be an observer, or would he retain police powers?
Well, it's my understanding through working with Brian Renault that we have offshore jurisdiction in regards to where it's Wayne County. So working in conjunction with the county is going to get us to the complaint, and Brian's opinion was that it's a noise ordinance like anything else, and that we would have enforcement powers for these particular vessels.
And by having,
How often would the patrols take place?
I would have no idea, and it would be random, probably based on a complaint.
Chief, I had a neighbor call, he wanted to know whether or not, it's like skeet shooting, do they need an annual license to do that? This from the yacht club, do we give them an annual license to
We
allow
gave them
that?
permission initially, 4 or 5 years ago, I think?
Couple years.
Based on certain, they were within the allowable distance from any residence, et cetera. We do not provide them with an annual, we do make inspections over there sometimes when they're shooting.
Do we?
Make sure
Okay,
they abide by safety rules.
They wanted to know whether or not we were giving them an annual license. Okay.
As well as the,
Over there, haven't you, Chief?
sir?
You've given them gun safety training too, some of those, when they were shooting mosquitoes.
Yes, yes. As well as the duck hunters, we get calls on them every year, as long as they're within 450 feet of any occupied residence, they're
Okay.
legal with steel shot, so.
Okay. Any other questions of the chief? If not, thanks, chief, and good work for all your work during the year. Thank you. Brett, Public Works?
Good afternoon, everyone. I've been told to be brief this afternoon, so that will be my intention. I can start by saying our LEAF program has come to an end. The cutoff date this year was December 7th. However, your DPW employees made complete passes through the village on December 10th and December 11th. This year was quite a challenge for us due to the cold weather and the wet weather. And as a result of that, our tonnages have been quite a bit higher this year. So far, we've hauled away about 900 tons of leaves. Compared to last year's total was 732 tons. So currently, we're up 168 tons, and we still have a little bit to haul across the street. Our park entrance has been graded, and the excess dirt is getting hauled away today. I don't know if you saw the trucks out there. The center island in the parking lot at the park has been regraded, and it has some trees planted. I think it looks great, thanks to Brett Marshall and the Improvement Foundation, and hopefully Mr. Marshall will be commenting on that a little later. You may have noticed the new gatehouse has been bricked. That project across the street is still moving forward. I met with a fencing contractor today in preparation for the required fencing, the gate, and the security gate arm that will be installed in early spring. The seawall project at the park has been completed. We have some cleanup work to do. We have some metal around the area. And I believe that project went well, and thank you to Councilman Seeley for your assistance in that project. Your DPW took delivery on a new pickup last week, and we hope to have it in service by the end of this week. And I'd like to thank the council for their continued support in the Public Works Department in the last year. 2018 was quite a year for us. But with your support, the DPW has been able to repair Moreland. We did a lot of concrete work on that street, many of you know. We did have the opportunity to repave Belmead. We were able to facilitate our SAW grant, analyze excess flows in our sewer system, and make repairs as needed. And as I mentioned a little earlier, there's been work completed on our seawall at the park. We have a new park entrance and gatehouse, along with a completely refurbished and updated tennis courts and the lighting. DTE Energy has been through this city and replaced every bit of gas lines and services in our city, and they're going to be repaving Colonial Road for us in the spring. I'm sure I'm forgetting something, but once again, I'd like to thank council for all the support you've given your Public Works Department. And on behalf of your Public Works Department, I'd like to wish everyone a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And that is all I have.
Thank you, Brett.
that
You
was
did a great
fast.
job during the year.
Okay, thank
Any
you.
Brett, I
questions?
just want to say, from my family and my neighbors and the people that I speak to, thank you so much for what you do for our city. It is beautiful day in and day out, whether it's snow removal, leaf removal, grass cutting, the park. You make this city absolutely stunning, and you seem to do it effortlessly with all of your employees. And so for that, I just say thank you. From garbage pickup to everything, it's just, it's done just perfectly, so thank you.
Well, I thank you for that. Now we will pass your comments
Please
along
do.
to the men.
Yep, thank you.
Brett, I just wanted to also say thanks for everything that you do, and also mention that the way you and Mark reacted to my desperate plea at the end of the summer about the gatehouse and entrance and the seawall splash guard was really very, very appreciated. I mean, to see that all of this work is just about done in a very condensed period of time is really a nice thing to see, and I think it's great for the residents to see that we're not all just talk, that we can actually come up with a plan and execute it well. And the little miracle you pulled off on that boulder, the rock that has been put to support that splash guard, it just looks spectacular. The size of the rock is perfect. Kids won't be able to pick it up and throw it in. It looks visually very pleasing. Structurally, it's going to be outstanding. The speed in which that all unfolded was amazing, and Mark even told me that you guys were able to do some horse trading on it, made it really just very, very viable from every standpoint. So I wanted to thank you both. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brett. Good work. Park Committee, Doug?
There was a lot mentioned about the discussion that went on and is ongoing at the park, and so I won't belabor that any. Otherwise, we have a meeting in February. The date is to be determined yet, but it'll be early February. That's all I have.
Okay, thanks, Doug. Harbor Committee?
I know that Tom has sent out a letter to all the boaters, and we're on schedule with everything. The new harbor boards are going to be displayed. There's going to be one in the upstairs office area, and then one in the pool house area, so that people can see what wells are available, who's actually in a well that's paid for. And I just think that all the things that we had set out to do a year ago have been achieved and then some. So I'm pleased to see where things are headed with that. The only thing that is a ball that's still up in the air is we've had a difficult time locating for, at the end of every one of the floating docks, where there's a dock box there in the power interface, there's a spot on that interface for us to add a meter. It's a very small electrical meter, and the ones that the manufacturer has available are just cost prohibitive, and we had talked about metering the larger yachts that leave the air conditioning running 24/7. And as a result of that, we were going to do a little bit of an analysis of what we think would be a fair rate increase for the power for boats based on their length, so that we can make sure that we're not going backwards on the cost of the power. Other than that, everything else is either achieved or running smoothly.
Good. Thanks, Matt. Well, I particularly like the big board upstairs. As soon as you walk upstairs, you can see which wells are available, if they're vacant, and if it's a non-resident, where the residents have priority, then they know, and it may be something that they could move into the following year. I think that's a great improvement also. Thanks, Matt. Infrastructure, Bob?
Well, there's been little or no action from Wayne County, so nothing's being really done, from my viewpoint. I did take a look at one spot I keep an eye on, and there's been further deterioration.
Okay,
So
okay.
I've been talking to Mark a little bit, and they just haven't got up. They were supposed to have a meeting periodically, and they have failed to do that too.
Okay.
With, I can't remember their job title, but Director of Public Works, so.
Okay.
They did some rock filling down in the farms, and the water just pushed the rocks up farther up in the
Wow.
pit. So it
Wow.
really, you put a Band-Aid on something, Band-Aids only last a short period of time. We all know that, so.
Wow.
Maybe Wayne County will do something, maybe a shot in the arm.
Well, and thanks for working with the resident on Valentine regarding that energy issue. So I know they're gonna be contacting you for the cover letter to send to the State
Yeah.
Public Commission.
I did give him a copy of the thing he has to send forward, and I told him what he should do. He doesn't need a lot of signatures, just a few would work.
So like 20, 25 signatures?
Yeah, 20 would be sufficient.
Okay,
But the sooner he gets that in, the better off it is.
okay. I'll advise him. Thanks, Bob.
Okay.
Improvement Foundation?
Good afternoon, Council. Mr. Mayor, on behalf of the trustees, I'd like to wish everyone a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Not much to report. We have not met this month. We'll be meeting first week of January. We'll take some more votes and have some more discussions about some topics and projects. The other thing I'd like to briefly touch on is the success of the Holiday Home Tour. Had a lot of good people turn out for that, and it was a great fundraiser for us. And I'd like to thank Fran and Heidi for all their hard work. Brett had touched upon the trees in the park. The foundation planted 26 trees this year. 10 of them went into the park itself. Those row of spruce that you see down in Center Island. Something different for the park, so I thought we'd change it up a little bit. Other than that, the foundation's been kind of quiet, so any questions I can answer, I'm happy to do so.
Well, we appreciate your leadership, Brett, in terms of garnering the money for the tennis courts, the $100,000. That was a real big accomplishment,
Happy to help out.
very big accomplishment, and we thank you.
Have a
for
good holiday,
your
everyone.
heart.
Thank you.
And I want to thank Tom Mellos for opening up his house. I know he was afraid of having 300 or 400 people, strangers, walking through his house, but he accommodated them. Thank you, Tom. Okay. Oh, did they? Good. Another thank you, Brett, see? Legal report. Brian's not here, so I guess I have the privilege of advising you of what he did. On general municipal matters, he reviewed and provided comment to the city on a proposed cell town ground lease agreement. He researched applicable law and prepared a recreational marijuana opt-out ordinance for city implementation. He prepared an ordinance amendment to the city fire code for city implementation. Reviewed, conducted applicable legal research, and prepared response to news organization requests for city council meeting audio-video recordings. And he researched, consulted with the city regarding the preliminary response to an appeal filed by a FOIA requester concerning review of 2016 election ballots in the possession of the city. I think he's commented on that before. Regarding Deepland property development issues, He conferred with the city representatives regarding response to public comment issues raised at the November 20th city council meeting. He conferred with the city manager and city planner regarding development manager proposal received by the city. He analyzed and conferred with city regarding going forward requirements for further plan review by the city. He analyzed Michigan case law regarding permissibility of municipal intervention and deed restriction disputes. And he conferred with council for developer and city planner regarding a tree plan progress and project oversight matters. So, that's legal. Mark, manager's report?
Sure, first of all, I'd like to say Merry Christmas to everyone, too. It's fun to be able to say that. I want to say, in this side of town, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to everyone. You know, one of the neat things working here is the quality of the elected officials and the volunteers that we have in the city. And again, also so many of the fine city residents that we do business with on a regular basis, and that makes it fun. Now, I will say, it was commented already about the two boards. Staff hasn't figured out how to play Battleship on the one upstairs because it's now on the wall, and I can't put up something between it to see who shoots down which ship there, but no, only teasing about that. Brian did a really excellent job, the mayor mentioned this. This election FOIA is really under the current FOIA law, and Brian doesn't charge us for FOIA, but he's got to do research on this. You would have had an extra item on the agenda today. He was able to research this between the appeal that this one group filed, which will probably be heard at our January meeting. They found a section in the FOIA law that doesn't allow us to charge for people to look at things. However, under election law, these people want to look at and perhaps photo, since we can't make copies on our existing machine, of the ballots from the 2016 election. And we can't charge them, even though we have to have a staff person who is sworn as an election worker to be there to make sure they're not taking, their solution. I don't know that we sent this to council, but you'll get a kick out of it, was you can search us when we leave to see if we stole any ballots. Well, they could be damaging ballots, they could be folding them over, who knows? But in any case, we're gonna have to eat the cost, which was all of $200 or $300 that they're objecting to, because the law does not provide for us to charge for someone to be looking at material that the city has prepared for them. One of the things I was able to do, I was asked by the city of Troy, and I was able to spend a morning over there on a Friday, no less. They selected a forensic review team to look at the expenditures of their city manager, and he was supposed to be sentenced in federal court, I think, on the 13th, but I think that's postponed. But it was interesting to be asked to review for 9 proposals and an interview actually with a couple of folks. As was mentioned earlier, the Public Act 202 Retirement System Annual Report was submitted, and we don't meet the requirements yet for having to submit a new compliance plan for it. But mentioned earlier, it's really a difficult subject to deal with because promises were made in contracts years ago, and this council in its early days, or predecessor in its early days, made the change to, and of course you continue to put money away for the retirement system, you continue to pay the OPEB costs with that, and for all new employees, we're also putting away funds in the retiree health savings program. All of which impact our budget, but we are taking a look at what we can do in terms of potential changes that don't change benefits, but that could result in some savings for us. Tim Colleen was going to be here today. He sent me a couple of texts. He stuck it down at the county. I had breakfast with him this morning, and he's keenly interested and wanted to talk about the CDBG program that we participate in. This came up at the mayor managers, and perhaps the mayor's gonna talk more about that, but we're probably gonna have to combine with the other Grosse Pointe, submit one application. As you know, we spend a little for the ads that we have to put in the paper, and then we provide for Full Circle to operate a concession stand and things like that. We're still waiting. He's assured me that he's talked to the county about a meeting on the shoreline, perhaps after the first as well. And that's it for me.
Okay. Old business, none, new business. The first item is the restoration and maintenance permit on page 57.
Yeah, this is a requirement each year from Wayne County, and both A and B are annual things that we do in December. It's nice, I wish I could say, and I say this every year, that we would like them to get our permission to do work on our streets, but, you know, since we're below them in the pecking level, we have to get their permission and stuff, so we recommend approval.
Are there any comments? If not, I need a motion to,
So moved.
Second.
all those in favor, say aye. Aye. The second item is this annual special events permit against a routine item each year. It's on page 71 to 79. Again, I need a motion to approve this.
So moved.
Is there support? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Now we have an amendment to Chapter 14 Fire Prevention and Protection Ordinance.
This is just updates the fire code. We're stuck with the, stuck is not the word, but there are no amendments allowed under the state construction code. They usurped all local powers of doing that. They have a new fire code. It's up to us to adopt it like other codes when they make changes.
Again, I need a motion to approve and allow this to be signed.
So moved.
Support.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We have an ordinance to prohibit marijuana establishments, which again, we don't have a commercial district. I'm not sure the effect of it, Mark, but
So you can't have a
The
lemonade.
reason we put this in, we talked to Brian about this, and other cities are concerned that maybe one of our large properties might be a rental, and there might be a number of people all eligible to have, 12 plants per person or something there, and are concerned about this. So this is the opt-out to the extent that we know what we have to opt out of.
well, would that rise to the level of a trade or business, separate trade or business, which we don't permit, under our zoning ordinance? I mean, it's really still tied in with commercial enterprises.
But the law currently allows anyone in there, and, we do allow rental properties, and there are issues with respect to, that's kind of gave rise to this concern.
But the tenants are still governed by our zoning, which would prohibit them from having a separate trade or business.
Yes, but if they can have 12 for their own so-called consumption or whatever, it was a concern, and again, this is all new ground, as the chief mentioned earlier, but we think we're better off putting something in writing as an ordinance.
Yeah, not only that, I think it's important as a community that we go on record just saying that this is what we stand for and this is the kind of community we want. There are a lot of communities that have gone on record that are just saying, no, not us. And I think it's important Grosse Pointe Shores makes that statement.
Okay. Well, I need a motion to approve this resolution.
So moved.
Second.
Support. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Public comment? Any public comment? George, you're usually good for one comment. No? Okay. Council members' comment, Bob?
I have nothing additional, just wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a very Happy New Year.
Thanks, Bob. Matt?
Yeah, I'd just like to say that this year I think was really very productive and successful, and that we all had a lot of different challenges that we worked together with the city with, and the employees and the residents and the council all came together, and we were able to get a lot accomplished. And I'm really, really pleased to see the progress in the park and things from our tree plan, all the way, doing the roads, and there's so many great things taking place. And it was a good year, so Merry Christmas, and let's hope 2019 is as productive.
Thanks, Matt. Tina?
I echo the same. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to all of our residents, volunteers, employees, friends, and family that make this the best city in the world to live in.
Doug? Couple comments for myself. As Mark alluded, we had a mayor managers meeting. The topic was the PEG fees, because our agreement, I think, is ending next year. Talk about what to do, and we ended up with like a legislative briefing session about Comcast and the regulations regarding if we forego receiving that PEG fee, would the residents in our city then receive a reduction in that per person, roughly about $4 to $5 per home. And I think the consensus was that it would be a short-term savings, because then if you give it up, Comcast would have the right then to change and alter the rates. So, I mean, very complicated. Was it Shane or Pete Dame used to do legislative work in Washington, D.C., and he gave us an expose about the telecommunications industry. That was just, I mean, it's just very complicated. But again, our PEG money, what to do with it, also the franchise income, whether or not we would be able to go together and conduct a limited review, or actually an audit of the books on behalf of all the Grosse Points and Harper Woods, to make sure that the calculation of our franchise fee is being calculated correctly. That's miscellaneous income when Rhonda books it on the financial statements, but it's becoming a very important and regular part of our operating income. Second is, I'd like to remind everyone, the veterans, that we're going to have a separate reception here at 11 o'clock on Veterans Day at City Hall. We want the veterans to tell City Hall so we can give them a special invite. We want to honor them for their years of service in the military. So I had the pleasure of meeting a Green Beret just last Thursday, and when you hear what they do and the training, and he was a member of SEAL Team 6, which was on top of your 8 months of training and their Hell Week. They have a 9-month training program if you want to be a SEAL Team 2 or 6. And this is the person that was responsible for ultimately killing Osama bin Laden. So this is the end of the year, and it's time of gratitude and Thanksgiving. I want to thank our city council for all our years of, the great year of service. The finance committee, Bruce, on your leadership. I see Chuck Reifrock in the back, our citizen representative. Our planning commission, Mary, for your leadership. It was a very busy year, let's just say busy year. I mean, I look at all the committees, the park committee, the Harvard committee, infrastructure. This is what makes the city so special. All the volunteers, the Improvement Foundation, Brett, I mean, people giving back to the community. And that's what makes this community so special. I think we're on the right track, but it wouldn't be possible with all the volunteers that we have. That's why the least that we can do is have this volunteer reception and really honor the people that make this happen. I don't know what else to say, because it's a lot of work. And when you sit here, you realize that, Carl, you were in this position not too many years ago. You know all the work that goes into it. I mean, you oversaw the creation of our new harbor. I mean, all the hours that you spent, and to have the great product that we have now. But that's what makes this so special. I also want to thank the Donardis family, Rick and Diane Donardis, that made a donation of $4,500, I believe. And we purchased a new computer for our ambulance with that money. Again, they went to the chief and they asked, what could we do? Is there something that we can do? That just shows you the connection that the residents have to the city. It's a special place. This is a destination city. None of us here grew up in Grosse Pointe Shores. So at this point, I'd like to wish everyone a Merry Christmas and a happy and healthy New Year. And we're promising to, add more activities. Oh, yes?
Oh, just when you're done.
Okay, and so I think we got a lot done this year. I mean, the new gatehouse, people are noticing it and commenting on it. that was the right step in the right direction. The new tennis courts, the 4 new tennis courts, we had some hiccups with them in terms of moving them or not moving them, but ultimately, we came up with a good plan, and it was executed to perfection. And Brett, you know, with all the work that was going on to protect the seawall, now we got an unrestricted seawall that better protects the landscaping that was being removed every year by the washing of the water. I don't know, I mean, I'm very thankful for all the good work, all the volunteer hours, all the things that make it happen. Bruce Vollmer in the back there, I mean, coming to these meetings, you know, early in the morning, participating. So, well, I think the food's arrived, so I'm done. Thank you. Mark?
We have just one special presentation. As part of, you know, working here and having fun, we thought that there should be a special presentation.
Oh, look at that. Well, that's right. I was remiss. It was Matt's idea on the back of a napkin who drew up the new entranceway to the park.
Thank you.
Or paper towel. It was either a paper towel or a napkin. But, you know, now that it's in place, it looks wonderful. So, thank you. Our next council meeting is January 15th. I need a motion to adjourn.